is involving, I'm just going to read it, but I'm going to recuse myself. So it's OCCL. It is an item regarding, where is my key? Oh, there it is. It is a, regarding the contested case for, so because I've worked on Mauna Kea Comprehensive Management Plan, I am going to recuse myself and I'm going to leave the room. And Mr. And board member Yoon is going to preside, all right? Okay. So we're going to call OCCL in. They'll do a brief presentation and then you'll be able to
Chair, before you leave the room, can I just ask one thing?
Yes, you may. Yes, you may. Oh, where did you read this?
That's actually from my mom's, but it came from
Let me just do this. You are in good hands. Thank you very much.
Thank you, OCCL.
Okay, good afternoon, Chair Yoon, board members. That sounds fun to say, I don't know. Michael Kane, Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands, on item K1. This is in response to a contested case request by Ms. Lolani Teal on the board's vote on June 22nd, 2022 to approve these lands on Mauna Kea. We've prepared a legal analysis of the contested case request in consultation with the attorneys general, and we're recommending the detailed legal analysis to our staff report. But in plain English, the issue before us is, do we hold contested cases on management plans? The answer is no. But we don't. There's nothing in the law that says we hold contested cases on management actions. I would add 2 points. One is that the management plan does discuss potential future land uses, such as, for one example, gates. If the university pursues that, they will need a permit. They will need to come in front of this board, and those land uses are subject to Chapter 91 and contested case requests, but not just the discussion on the land uses, which is what the CMP is. And secondly, I know there's questions about how this relates to the new Mauna Kea Authority. It does not. These are the university obligations while the university manages Mauna Kea lands. Anything from the university or do their own is up to them. So again, this is just focusing on the university's responsibilities for the. With that, I will pass the floor over to Ms. Lolani Teal. Or, I'm sorry, do you have?
Board members, any questions about them?
Or maybe the... yeah, so just very briefly, contested cases have to do with a property interest, and property interest arise when there is a use of the land. And so here the management plan, as Michael explained, it does discuss land uses, but it doesn't put forward or have the board actually approve a land use. So any land use that's even discussed within the management plan still comes to the board or actual approval when a use is going to actually put in place. So right now, there's no actual land use being proposed.
And how are we defining a use?
So our office defines a land use as a physical change to the land or a structure that will last longer than 30 days. So an example I often give is somebody camping for the weekend is not a land use. For conservation district rules, it's that 30-day threshold. Hiking, we're not involved, it's not a land use. Building a trail is a land use.
Board members, any other questions? Okay, at this time, thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
ask the sitting chair's permission to give some visit.
Aye, of course.
Mahalo.
You only need 2 minutes now to do this, so, no, just kidding.
Okay, the owl is speaking for
Yeah.
its 2 minutes. Yeah. You got it, okay.
Oh my God, good you give Darlene. Okay.
Mahalo,
Aye.
thank you for the extra time, I
Aye.
really do appreciate it. Mahalo. Okay, and I want to mention that the reason that, I felt moved to bring two different kinds actually put together, but they're both from our kingdom. And, these are roses that have been with us for a very long time. They were given as a gift to the kingdom a long time ago. They come from Syria. Now they're basically relatives of the Lokelani. All of those came at the same time, and they show us how in Hawaii we persevere. So, that being said, I just wanted I do want to discuss how serious this matter is all right now. So I think that the denial of the contested case is basically based on two things, right? One is the idea being that it doesn't do anything at this point, and that there would be another point in which we could resolve anything. However, in regard to the first matter, the property interest, I just really need for all of you to very deeply have no property interest in Mauna Kea. That means, and I'd like you to think about the Admissions Act and a number of other things that probably we don't have the time to fully discuss right now, which is why a contested case is requested in order to have that time because if either of those things are true, right? If we're not just talking about a plan, or if I have a property interest in Mauna Kea as a Kanaka practitioner, if either one of those is true, then you would grant the contested case. So by denying the contested case, as staff recommends, that would be saying that neither of those are true, yeah? And unless you're really sure that neither one of those is true, I'm going to hold that the best thing to do would be to proceed. Now I want to like I need a hole in my head, and I'm sure we all do, right? There is an option in your rules for mediation. I will tell you right now on record, I am fully willing to mediate this case, because all we're really looking to do seriously is just send it back to UH for a real public process. That's all. That's all. And if that can't be done, there's something really wrong here. Regent's agenda that when it was passed the first time, of course nobody testified. You know why? Because it wasn't even linked in the agenda at all. Nobody knew. It was just simply listed on a very long agenda approval of CMP update, It sounded like a very routine thing. Nobody said there was a 743-page document attached to that was being approved that has gates, which given, okay, maybe they would need a permit, but I don't think that they would absolutely necessarily need to come before this board to get that permit, because there are several processes they could use to try to get around it. And we've seen that happen before. So gates, a shuttle to like force people to take a shuttle, an orientation video, where I'm gonna say that those of us who are cultural practitioners know that when we are in our space of reverence and spiritual practice, we can't go and watch an orient. What happens, is that the practitioners are divided into two groups. One is the kiai, the ku'e, those who will just, I'm gonna do what I do because this is what my practice tells me, right? Those are the kiai. And then the others are like many of my la'au lapa'au mates who are very sensitive, very law-abiding, and they would be exterminated from practice and they'll stop and they won't come back. And that's called indigenous. I'm saying this is more than a plan. This is more than a plan. And it's more than just a matter of getting through a bunch of things that need to be done. I highly recommend that if you pass this with no contested case today, at every single time there is pilikia over any of the stuff that's in that 743 pages, you're going to have, like, honestly, when my sister Tara over here was talking, she testified earlier on the bird situation, we all dearly love the birds. We all want to protect the birds. Absolutely, 100%. And at the same time, I really hear what she was saying, that there should be, but to be doing it together, we've got to be doing this collaboratively. There needs to be an opportunity to have oversight, review, actual public comment on these things. We need to stop.
Do you want to call me up?
And absolutely, and she kind of has a little pass.
Oh, I got 45 seconds, hurry up.
So anyway, I do want to call your attention also to, it's a lot to look through, but I'll tell you, go take a look at that, because they basically said, where's the public process in this? Why are you not consulting the Hawaiian community? And that's simply what this contested case request is about. It's simply asking for there to be actual consultation, actual process, meaningful dialogue. We're all looking at the same thing and people aren't hiding it, and we know what we're talking about, and there's a decision made that is an actual informed decision. And sometimes that decision needs to be informed by those who actually know the matters. I do ask that you please consider those two things. The ending the Kanaka Maoli property interest in these very sacred Crown Kingdom lands, and the second one is whether this is really just a plan, or is this a little bit more than that, in which case there is a due process that you absolutely do need to follow. So that is those are the two things that I ask you to really very seriously consider individually and collectively.
Mahalo. Board members, any questions or comments for?
She wasn't here, so I'm speaking for her in a way. So I, as Malnati's been talking about.
Can you please introduce
Oh,
yourself?
I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's great.
Bianca Isaki. Other attorneys are in Maui, so they couldn't be here. So as far as like the idea that your rules say that only certain land uses and permits allow you to do contested cases, she has a constitutional property right in her use of that land in Mauna Kea. Under our constitution, under our statutes, chapter 91, she gets a contested case on that. The second question, I like how you frame that, is does this require telescope permits, or they ask for one? And then they appealed to the Third Circuit. The Third Circuit said, no, they need a real comprehensive management plan. They can't just do this like piece by piece plan. So that's how we have to have this comprehensive management plan. Then in 2009, of course, the first version comes out with some of the subplans. 2012, the ICA said, okay, yeah, you don't get a contested case on the management plan. You know why? All of these actions that affect your rights, access, things like the shuttle, things like hiking in hours, you don't, so at that point in 2012, that's what at least in 3 or 4 parts, as set forth in the comprehensive management plan. So that means that this plan has the force of law. That means that this plan governs her and other people's, other practitioners' rights and the ways that they use the Mauna. Legal reasons, that's why you would have to grant a contested case. We already went to the Supreme Court at like in 2002, like earlier in the year, and other practitioners to sit down and talk about how can they access the Mauna for their practices in a reasonable way. Also, yeah, so I'll stop there. There's just no legal basis to deny it, and so please don't just like keep making us run around in loops with the courts and everybody. Let's just like do this right.
Thank you. Thank you. Board members, any questions, comments? Riley, you good? Okay.
Sure, I have some questions for staff
Yep.
as follow-up to the,
How are you guys?
that was just maybe.
You need your staff? You need me to do it?
Oh, I don't know, am I staff enough?
I don't, you tell me. We
Okay,
can
I don't know the question yet,
and then we'll
so
find out.
Okay, just sit down.
And these may be questions that the AG may want to opine on as well, but I guess, so, one of the things that I find instructive about these meetings, obviously heard an agenda item today where there was a lot of emotional testimony, including my own, about the et cetera. And so I am curious as property interests, and if so, why?
Wow, oh, cases, I don't know. Obviously, in terms of, like, if I can jump back to the 30-meter telescope, which was one of the more controversial ones that we've had in front of the board, it was assumed that any Native Hawaiian who came forward had a property interest in Mauna Kea, whether they're from a property interest, just culturally, religiously, personally. But how that relates to a management, the broader definition of that, yeah.
And then I guess my second question, just building on Ms. Teal's comment, is just about the weight of a plan. And so like, if I make a plan, even if it's like a plan in my household or a plan in my work environment, I expect that plan to have some weight. I'm not just making the plan to make a plan and then not do anything about it. So, a reaction to the point that she made about sense of formal land use
No.
direction.
No, I have thoughts, it does not. We want to build this building, it's in our plan. I'd smile and I'd give them a blank application. And I haven't had that situation with the university, we get that quite often. Other government agencies who say, but it's in our plan. And it's a standard response for us, you still need to go through the permitting process. So this can be a guiding document, but for me, it's not a permit.
So it's everything that's envisioned in the plan, will that require a permit at some point?
Any land use, the rules regarding Mauna Kea, DLNR was not involved in those. Our office wasn't, this board was not. Those were approved by the Board of Regents. So a lot in this plan makes reference to how HIR is applied.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I guess my feeling is like there are things that are obvious in land use decision making. Feels like that her rights to a contested case.
I know that the contested case requests on the other management plans were denied, and that denial was held up at the courts. And Ms. Isaki brought that up. And then the management plans were challenged in the court. One time the court said redo it, one time the court accepted it. So there is a mechanism for citizens to have due process. It's not a contested case.
Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you, Michael.
It's legal market, on the race on Oahu, and was involved in the Mauna Kea case. And I was reviewing the right, intervening in a very large 400-acre development that was taking place on Kauai, where we filed our document. It's her thing. What the facts revealed when we submitted our documentation was a memorandum came from the Historic Preservation Review Commission. And this is probably a word or an animal or a species that you may or may never have heard of. Maybe some people don't want to hear about it, but it is alive on the island of Kauai. Okay, and the reason what you have, what I'm presenting here is the Hawaii Revised Statutes of 1955.
Oh, is that for us to read?
Yes,
But read them all.
absolutely.
Okay.
Well, it's a lot to read, but I'd like to share with you, take a picture of it. It can be worried, so that I'm not jumping all over the place. I have a little narrative that I prepared to bring this to make sure your bearings are okay. Okay, and so. Yes. Members Board, members of international oversight under the United Nations Charter. Chapter 11, Declaration regarding non-self-governing territories. A revision of the fundamental laws of Hawaii in the Hawaii Revised Laws of the People, Hawaiiana. And a copy is included, but I can, actually, so this is what we're dealing with. We are dealing with certain rights of the people. That in 1955, the sum total of what had evolved from the indigenous occupants of Hawaii into having of 1959, when the federal constitution would come in and, open should be. So rather than so I said, let me see, I said, okay. So from a sacred trust to ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment, and their protection against abuses. Executive Proclamation 30, equal footing requirement to be met. In order for the U.S. political subdivision, aka State of Hawaii, by adoption of the U.S. federal constitution, could come in and could be admitted into the Union, it would put the constitution everything. This is what preceded this. So as part of complying programs within the non-contiguous Pacific, Title 16 conservation, came into effect to define and organize historic preservation programs within the preservation review standards and guidelines to conform with programs to be administered by the political subdivision.
Okay, on the
Of Kauai, no historic preservation review commission exists. This fact came as a surprise to me when the permitting process for the 30 million telescope began on the Big Island, when I discovered that there existed like a perverted representation of Historic Preservation Review Commission. was operating under the guise of Cultural Resource Commission. And if you look at that book, and I don't have the copies, it exactly, it defines the right or subject. You'll see it in chapter 1. Now, this is what exists on the island of Kauai. And when I went into the Big Island, everybody, and under the United States Constitution, the Historic Preservation Review Commission, in existence in the Hawaiian Islands, you don't have a benchmark. You're 1 inch off, and the farther out you go, the farther off you get, reaching a cliff. Okay, we're gonna run over the cliff, we're gonna run out of space, and so we have to define these things.
Okay, Uncle, I like it. One more minute.
Okay, I got okay, so this is, okay, so I'm almost there. If we went back to the book, there'd be a Hawaiian Kingdom flag over there, and you folks would be the Crown Land Commission. That is the depth of the responsibility that is in the seat that you sit in this office. Maybe you cannot see it right now, but it's there. So as, just the quick short here and end, it says, stated chapter 14-1, building materials, water, etc., landlord's titles, subject to tenants' use. Where the landlords have obtained or hereafter obtain allodial titles to their lands, the people on each of their lands shall not be deprived of the right to take firewood, house timber, aho cord, thatch, or leaf from the land in which they live for their own private use, but they shall not have a right to take such articles to sell for profit. The people shall also have the right to drinking water and running water and the right of way. The springs of water running. Unfortunately, like I said, there are no. There's nothing. And a historic culture, we didn't even know what to call it. Okay? And the difference between this book and the Hawaii Revised Statutes is that this does not identify us as being race-based Native Hawaiians, which is constitutionally a big problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Mahalo.
this is what I provide to you.
Mahalo.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for the book.
Yeah.
It's Exhibit A, yeah, right here.
Exhibit A.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Rico? Riley, good? Okay, I'm sorry to have the move up list. Yeah, but I have a move.
There's 3 of us.
Yeah, I have a move up list.
Okay.
Ooh. Guys, I need lunch or what? Okay.
On it.
Honu Aina, Nichols, Kuya.
She's set up. Okay.
See?
I'll be reading from my phone and coming, so be fast. 2 minutes, okay. I was born in California, but I'm raised in Oahu. I stay in Maunalua and work at a local graduate of UC Santa Barbara, which is a part of the university. I'm Kanaka Maoli. So I stay maka'ala to what's happening on our sacred sites, to our sacred waters, to our sacred resources, simply because of who I am, because I am Kanaka, especially when it's happening at our piko. I'm testifying in opposition to the passing of the CMP supplement and ask that the Lani more thorough and thoughtful review with a fairly simple ask on our part. I urge you to consider the following reasons to respect Kanaka Maoli and our cultural practices. The permitting requirements in the CMPS, which we'll call it, allows UH and DLNR the power to arbitrarily determine who is a cultural practitioner and who is not. There must be a longer review process for the community. If this project is to be considered pono, as it is claimed, to the natural and cultural resources of the Mauna, which are designate crown lands, we cannot be shuttled and surveyed on our own aina. It rolls back key natural and cultural resource protection commitments. DLNR and UH failed to conduct any community consultation meetings in regards to the CMP supplement. I would say that 2 meetings held in Honolulu with little to no outreach is your chair had mentioned that without taking action for the previous issue with the Manu, that would be an irresponsibility on your part as a board.
Was that her 2 minutes?
Oh,
Yeah.
but that's the kicker, yeah, is that we have a responsibility here. And you acknowledge that responsibility to protect our resources, to protect our people. Aina is precious, our birds are precious, everything that is needed to this process is also, with those reasons, I had also written testimony, so if you want to go over that again, I just implore that you take all of these things into consideration and accept anti-lalangi.
By the
Oh,
way.
maano.
Oh, all day after, all right. Okay.
It's for the Aina, for the Vice, for Kanakamoli.
All right, please introduce yourself again, please.
So I'm Tara Rojas, and I'm gonna testify in or against the denial of this contested case, item K1. And so I'm gonna start with this. Article 1, the meaning of individual rights under Hawaii's Constitution and the responsibility for the exercise thereof rest with the people. All government is founded on this authority. So the power, again, is in the people. And I want to add to that, the Hawaiian, so the Tapa Mauna Kea from 10,000 feet and above, right? It is Act, of 1920, established a federal entity to oversee the development of homesteading on Hawaiian lands for Kanaka Maoli. The HHCA, the acronym, requires the federal, I know I'm between, but we're talking about the month. So I'm going to get to this. So, in 1959, and is responsible for managing state-owned lands. However, they have more control over them, including this BLNR. So, any of these agencies and entities. If the state of Hawaii is claiming ownership or control over the Hawaiian homelands, it may be in violation of federal law. Additionally, if state legislative legal process, they may be violating the HHCA. The UH Constitution prohibits public officials from serving two masters, which means that they cannot have conflicting loyalties to different entities. If for example, if the governor of Hawaii is serving both the federal government and the state, to reiterate and just sum it up, that basically, when you think about education, or as we like to call it, education, that you cannot turn a blind eye to Kamoni. We know that we are legally occupied, and then to establish and implement their own law are aware of and Pa'atu. So the BLNR, I mean just the capital, right? The city council, all of this whole system is Kava. It really, you don't have the jurisdiction, and there's a conflict of interest.
Quick question. If this board or other boards do not have the jurisdiction or authority, then how do we rule on something like this?
So I would say go back and, or is illegal. There's no jurisdiction. But like Anakala said, but the farther you go from something, right? The farther you get from the truth, the less it's brought up, or maybe. All I was just gonna say is that it's time for now 2023 for Pono to prevail and not ignore.
Member Cantor?
So, to that point now, who do you think in your mind, okay, but
The people, the beneficiaries, not the capital, it's the people. Political power, our political part of this state is inherent in the people, and the responsibility for the exercise thereof in the people, not within this system.
Okay, mahalo.
Yeah?
Okay, anybody else, nobody on the move up list, anybody else want to testify? Okay. What, I can set my alarm? Because you have
I just came here to support Auntie Alani and the contest here on. And I was glad that Auntie kind of made it shortly and pointed out key parts of it that mentioned, like everyone was saying, pretty much put Kanaka Maoli to the side, people as and whatnot can happen at Mauna Kea and other places. This is not our fighting and still getting run over. It's kind of sad, when you read this and you see it and then you hear, their comments or their point of view or their way that they think that it's going to be good for everyone, which is not the case. It's really being put out to be that. I really strongly believe that we're at a time where you have to your soul, you start using yourself, you start giving in to what this management of the world has been, which is not what our past is here, other places, little by little, but now it's regaining more strength. Really try to get in touch with the land. That's the most important part that everyone in the world has been asking many years, you know. Culture is when you start that yet, and
Oh, yeah,
has
but-
been 2 minutes.
Oh, it's been 3.
Oh, it's been 3? Oh.
Yeah, but hey,
My
one more.
lavender sound. That's
Yeah, one more.
No,
Summarize,
so the
please.
bottom line is that to serve a contest case on that agenda K1 because
Very good. Any other testimony on Zoom, Doreen?
I
do
Oh,
have
oh,
on Zoom, but I do have.
okay.
You have one on Zoom?
That's all right, I just shot. Okay, aloha mai kako.
Aloha.
My name, I think I've seen Mr. Char very often since 2012, I've been following the TMT case. And I urge you to reconsider the staff's recommendation. Now, I teach courses on land struggle, and my students and I actually looked through the staff's submittal, and we actually read through it, and I'm actually very grateful that Teal has a property interest. Because as he clarified, in the 2016 contested case hearing, it was clear that Native Hawaiians, all Native Hawaiians, have a property interest in Mauna Kea. So property interest in the 2022 supplement. Okay, so that's already been disproven because as he said, you know, there's a precedent. The second half, that the supplement will not affect any property in which the petitioner has an interest. And that is the question. I'm really glad that Board Member Barnes, you bring that up. How much weight does a plan have? Process, yeah? And so what I'm concerned about is when I look at the staff submittal, it says that a contested case at this juncture and fulfill reporting requirements. And I'm not clear if this plan has no impact on the lands on which Ms. Teal has an interest in, how will it interfere with UH's ability to complete its subplans? And I think that that's a really big question because it shows that the plan does have an impact on activities on Mauna Kea. And that has not been clarified. Explains her genealogical ties to Mauna Kea through her great-great-grandparents. And that's all been proven to be a moot point by staff, okay? So this question about whether a plan has any weight. A plan is part of the Mauna Kea rules, right? Isn't it part of the rule system? So it's going to have an impact. And I'm looking specifically at the points that other people have already raised, such as access, right? The question of access, installing a gate. It says with the approval of BLNR. Okay, that one requires BLNR approval. There to the fact that it requires BLNR approval. So I'm concerned that only certain points indicate that BLNR approval of application. Okay. I also feel like, you know, the general public does not have a good relationship with the Board of Land and Natural Resources because of past actions and recent legislation that tries to do away the BLNR as an entity. And it feels like people's rights to be heard in a public process are being eroded. The system was established to give people a voice in these proceedings. Community consultation happens all the time. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Community consultation happens all the time, and there's no action taken, and that's meaningless. It's become just this lip service, and documented. And I think that that's so important to the perception of the BLNR as a decision-making body.
Zoom testimony, Doreen?
Yeah, we have Deborah Ward. Go ahead, Deborah.
Thank you very much.
Wait, you're on mute. Deborah, you're on mute.
Happy, you got it? Yep.
Okay.
There you go.
Good afternoon. Aloha kako. My name is Deborah Ward. I'm a retired faculty member in Natural Resources and Environmental Management, and as such, I've been on the Environment Committee for the Office of Mauna Kea Management. In 2000, and I was with regard to the WHM in the 2011 process, contested case, and also in the 2016 process as an individual. In 2009, the BLNR approved the comprehensive management plan written by Ku'ipalu, an enterprise headed by Don Chang, on behalf of the university. The plan was a contested case. When the CMP was approved, the BLNR required that 4 supplemental plans be included, as the original plan submitted by Ku'ipalu was insufficient to address critical areas that included public access, telescope decommissioning, natural and resource management, and cultural resource management. We were part of the testimony that raised those critical issues to the BLNR. I'm going to propose that there is another subplan that needs to be developed, and I'm not saying the university should do it because I believe the university has not, the Center for Mauna Kea Stewardship indicated to us at the Environment Committee that not a single Kia'i would be willing to talk to him. That basically means that he did not consult with Hawaiian Native Hawaiians. I'm going to propose to the board that despite the fact that you have put the cart before the horse in approving this plan before deciding on the contested case request, that you actually consider one condition that the board submitted in 2009, but that you address Native Hawaiian and cultural practitioner access separately from that of the public. Because you say that this is just a plan, it is not an action. But when I participate with practitioners in attempting to reach the summit or the summit region or Lake Waiau, clean vehicle, or the snow conditions prohibit over and over again. This is not to say that no one can go up full access to the mountain without any concern for their ability to drive on ice, for example. And I'm not saying that there's no opportunity for public health to be considered when there's a snow issue like there has been this week. But I've seen ridiculed, and I can cite examples. I submit that the board a plan for access and use of their sacred land that is Native Hawaiian not correctly called ceded land, and I believe that the board is in error for not considering this. I can definitely say that there are actions taken in this management plan that are with Native and the opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Board members, any questions or comments? No. Ready? You good? So, Ms. Ward, it's your contention that the plan itself is inadequate. Is that what you're saying?
Thank
you.
Jose Rogers.
Thank you, Ms. Ward. Kay Kule. Yeah, I see her name. Anybody else on Zoom?
I think there was somebody who just was admitted, Abraham. I don't know if he's here for this item or another.
Which one?
Abraham.
Oh. While we wait for Kule, Abraham, are you? Oh, okay. Abraham, are you here for the K1?
I'm just standing by.
Oh, no, hold on, we're waiting for Kule, that's why I think she's having some technical difficulties. So please introduce yourself, Abraham.
Abraham Antonio from the Big Island Boys, just watching the meeting.
Okay, any questions or comments, Abraham?
Not at this time.
Okay, Kule, are you there? Okay, anybody else? Oh, Lisa Bishop is not there. Maybe, please make the proper motion.
Oh, okay, sorry. Just make this louder. Okay, I'm Kule Rogers. I'm with the University of Hawaii and at the Coral Reef Ecology Lab at HIMB. I've been there for the past 30 years.
K2.
Oh, you know, Kule, I apologize. I think you're here for K2. This is, unless you have something to say about Laulani
Oh,
Appeals.
no, I thought you were moving up.
Oh,
no.
Sorry.
Oh, okay, different Kool-Aid.
Oh, no, you're right, Kool-Aid, but wrong agenda item.
Wrong agenda.
Yeah, we're on K1. Board member,
Motion to go into executive session.
motions in order to consult with our attorney on questions and issues pertaining to board powers, duties, privileges, immunities, and liabilities. Do I have a second?
Sorry, Chair, there's another person in the waiting room. Could I call up? I'm just admitting.
Well, I mean, we're gonna continue with, anybody else that wants to chime in on K1 after our session. All those in favor?
Aye.
Kobe, right? Okay.
Going to go into executive session right now, and we're here. We're gonna wait it out and see what they think. See, there's our media team, awesome media team. Yeah, you.
Remember the duct tape?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, the duct tape. We gotta show
Sophisticated.
Laulani, this is your tripod. You're from 80s.
Okay, so.
That's why.
All right, yeah, gotta have the awesome media team with the duct tape, the high-tech duct tape, yeah. And then we have the speaker team over here, the Manao team, So we will be back. We're gonna see what they decide in the executive session. And yeah, Jab, that was awesome testimony, Jab. So we're just kind of waiting out right now. We're gonna see how things go.
What said, if we can establish this, then we will be able Springs of water?
There, see?
Springs of water, running water.
I know, no, you're right.
I know, perfect.
The people shall also have the right to.
Oh, yeah.
Can we come, are we like?
No, this is Hawaii revised.
Trying to get through.
They're not supposed to.
For the state of Hawaii.
Yeah, so, okay.
Good question. But it was more prepared. So I would have
Question was,
what
what was the question?
The question was, so they're gonna go into an executive session right now and take a break, and I asked Angela, are they gonna do it here with us in the room, or are they gonna do that separate and have this conversation behind closed doors?
Issued.
Yeah, so that's what the executive session is. They're gonna have a little closed-door conversation. They can't make any decisions in this closed-door conversation. Unless you're certain agencies who have, not supposed to do that. So they will discuss, usually it's to discuss legal matters because we also have the right in due process, according to state due process, they have the right as individuals to make sure that they are protected from liability. That's usually one of the common reasons that executive session is called, but it can be called for a number of reasons. But basically, it just gives them a chance to
basically it's a time for them to talk and
Deliberate.
they can deliberate. They can mostly it has to be kind of limited in scope in theory, although of course we can't see it, so we don't want to stop it. But in theory, they're not necessarily supposed to decide on the issue or deliberate
Or
on
change
the
each other's
issue.
ideas.
They're supposed to. It's supposed to be to ask questions of their attorneys, especially, and to discuss private matters, like if it involves like confidential information or things like that. That's the purpose of executive sessions in theory, is to basically be able to make those kinds of decisions. Do you ever feel like you're being watched?
Look over your shoulder and there's a camera.
Am I being watched and all that? I think I am. You.
We gotta document. I know I'm part of the problem too.
That is all of our job, right? I mean, it's kind of karma because I do this to them all the time, and you guys.
I mean, we're catching the real story on the ground. We gotta make sure that when we're recording as media team, we were making sure to get the board members' faces to see their reactions to Kanaka sharing their testimony, because they're not gonna be pointing the cameras on them on their end. So we want to make sure that we're getting the full story.
Absolutely,
Media team. And thanks to Oren for allowing me to hop on to the media team.
Thank you for hanging on to the duct tape.
Hang on to the duct tape.
The duct tape was the one holding on.
That's the context that keeps it together.
Oh yeah.
The glue.
I had to add one behind the battery just to keep it up.
That was a great testimony, by the way. I really love your testimony.
Yeah, I felt I was talking fast, but no, I got yours too. You and Uncle Lico are just the best team. The best team. For real.
And for
My idols.
Yeah, all the same team. It's the
Yeah, thank you. Point you.
You're watching me, you're watching you.
The same reason.
There we go.
South African Corporation, International Court of Justice, organizations, you're in you're expelled. And that's what I'm seeing. That's where
Skinny and long?
we actually need what was suggested by Deborah.
Keep going.
Hawaiians, 4 months. 4 months. Because of the race identity that they've given to us and how it infects us, that we are not smart enough because of our color, because of our religion, because of our race, because of our nationality, we cannot be recognized to take control and govern. And this is what this is about. And already the foundation is shaking on this thing. By the time this goes, and of course, we can only do so much here. So where do we have to go? We go to the foundations of that Constitution.
I gotta go.
Thank you. Here, try to get this one. Thanks for coming out of the
To me, this is what I say.
the environment.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
we gotta come. We gotta show up.
And we can all help you. I thought she was coming on at 10. 15, yeah. They get you that way.
And because we're referring to the superintendent of the national parks.
I forgot the shoe.
This is the way it was put in.
Yeah, it attaches it.
Manual. I get the
So you makeshift. With Portuguese style.
There's another element like this. This is how you come to. And the importance of this bringing this up now is that this is for the future generations. So for this generation, for your children, so that no more, there's no question. There's there's no question. That's why it's like, it's difficult in front of a raging, how do you deal with a herd of cattle that's running around? What are they looking for? And my clients, a lot of times, you get tired of coming, you get slammed every time. They just beat your, so this goes with respect. See, what happens, so in other words, without this, you can come right up to the county planning department with a book and come up with your engineering problem for your house, get stamped from the planning department, go across to the real property division and get a tax map keyed only.
It's the TMK. They don't even have title, right? They only using the TMK.
See, so that's what Kauai, when this happened. When EWM, 400 acres, they were going to turn Lihue into a city, Las Vegas. And that's what I submitted to the county council, Honolulu City Council, which is recognized because he said no bills, why? Which is
yeah. About there's people.
Did you want to say something for the MKP?
Oh yeah, okay. So it's called the risk of essentialism. You just take it, the point, and I don't know.
You're not bus.
You were saying this in connection Martin's area.
Here, maybe I should.
Because
I'll go by Uncle Nico, so.
yeah, I think he would say that too. Yes.
Can you double with mine?
Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I gotta do something with it. Change my name. HRV. On tombstone, you better put this over there.
Oh my God. It's so important. It's so important.
It's that important.
Yes.
I've been reading about your more recent work too, because we're litigating Wailua Nui.
Oh.
Yeah, so I saw your contested
No
case
standing.
and stuff.
They said the board.
But we're back up. Yeah, we're doing another one. We're doing First Circuit in April.
So
So
what?
we're challenging these guys.
About the KIUC or Coco Palms?
Yeah, KIUC is another case. We're gonna do that too.
So Coco Palms. Okay.
Coco Palms is with the Huarasi, Mason Chalk, and those guys. They're all challenging because they're permitting the conceded lands to Coco Palms. So they just came to
Yeah.
But I saw your names and all of the boards and middles.
There's one person that's still alive.
Okay.
Who I
George Miles.
Oh wow, that's beautiful.
Call me a radical for I refuse to remain idle.
No. He doesn't live here. This person was there with Uncle Val when they excavated and took out the EV. Yes, no, he was with Uncle Val. He was part of the crew. Okay. I forget his name, but I know he's living right by the kayak place. He's living with Jimmy Yuen, guy's place right now. When they were excavating, and they started the place is called Mahuapue'one. This is a Pacific Cemetery. The entire place is a cemetery. Mahuapue'one, underneath, even underneath the road now. They're big, huge, everybody buried. In the background, anybody who was different in time, different lineage. When they were going to go and dig in the back section by the canal to put the tennis courts, Uncle Val said stop, because under there is nothing but EV. It's all EV. Underneath the tennis courts.
It's still there.
Yes, and every road, when these guys went to give the permission for, at that time, for developers who, whatever the name was, they just said, go ahead. I mean, we actually did this EV all inside there. Now this person, he's still alive. I know where he is.
I mean, I believe you, and I believe him, and I want to show you a map of what they're going to do, because we're trying to stop it, but it sounds like they're going ahead without permits right now.
Everybody is using COVID or whatever, or they're using Josh Green's proclamation to lift all that stuff and everything to just power ahead.
That's how they're gonna get everything changed.
Well,
Mauna Kea protectors. Yeah.
So that's the.
So I just let them know, so maybe remind like who are you, where are we, what just happened?
And all of the big EVs. They're still very.
We're at the DLNR, which is kind of like the Dutch.
I'm going to show you what they're doing.
I'm gonna just move because they're having a very important discussion about EV over there. So we are in the boardroom. We've spent a lot of time over many years in this, and I'm gonna say it's. You notice there's like no windows. It's kind of a little bit. We're in the Kalani Moku building. I just want to say a little thing about Kalani Moku because, Kalani Moku, the Kalani Moku building. So Kalani Moku was, he was a commander under Kamehameha I, who then, after Kamehameha I's death, became like basically a military commander for Kamehameha II, who was just a little kid at that time, right? And he was the brother of Manono. And Manono was, she was a wife of Kamehameha, which is a little weird because he was super old and she was super young. But only for a little while, towards the very end of his life. And then after he passed, she was with Kuamo'o, who was the nephew or son of Kamehameha, right? And so, but her brother was Kalani Moku, who was the commander of those forces. So when they ordered the destruction of all the heiau, right after Kamehameha's death, missionaries came in. There was an order through the priest Heva that all of the heiau be destroyed and that the old religion be put down, and it split the people, right? So a lot of people just kind of went with it, and then some rallied, and they actually had a battle in South Dakota. And so Kuamo'o, they call it the Battle of Kuamo'o because he was the leader of that battle. And Manono was with them, fighting with them, and they were both killed in that battle. And Kalani Moku, her brother, was the one who killed her. So it was very intense moment where you actually think of where you have the difference between a nation and a state, right? You see that right there. Manono being the essence of the nation, of the Lahui that won't give up, won't, no matter what, they know who they are, we know who we are. We assert who we are because we have to, because it's us, right? And we'll do it no matter what, right? And then her brother, Kalani Moku, is the essence of the state. Who,
Can speak a little louder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so Kalani Moku, Manono's brother, is the essence of the state. Essentially the nation state, right? Of Hawaii, of the kingdom, but it was, specifically of the state. So when there's this order to destroy all the heiau, and things are going to be like this and this and this, his job was to follow that and basically kill the people who opposed, including his sister. So, you know, there's a really, there are some very poignant portrayals of the moment on the battlefield when her husband, Kuomo'o, was shot in the leg and was bleeding to death, basically. And Kalanimoku basically told her, yeah, so when he dies, you're gonna die, you know, and she was like, no, you should let me live. And he was like, yeah, no, and essentially, it's pretty much, I think, yeah, no, because you're gonna come back and like kick her ass, you know? So he killed her, and but yet she keeps coming back, and we keep coming back, and here we are, and they're back. Okay, so.
Hello, everybody. DLNR just tied back from executive session, so or actually, maybe I'll stay on.
What's 4:15? Okay, we're back in session from. Back in session. Board members, any other comments, questions? Yeah. Oh, thank you. Any other testimony?
Chair, I did want to just acknowledge that there were 3 or 4 gentlemen here who had wanted to make testimony but had to leave. So I obviously don't know what their testimony would have been, but just to acknowledge that there were others.
Thank you, Member Barnes. Riley, you with us?
He's coming on.
On Zoom?
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, board members, any questions, comments? Riley, you good?
Okay, I'm good. You ready for the motion?
Ready?
Okay. Based on advice from our Attorney General and their write-up, I move that we deny the request for a contested case.
Do I have a second? Okay, discussion.
Chair?
Yep.
I'm gonna be voting against the motion. I think it's clear that Ms. Steele has a property interest. I think that's not something that anybody disagrees with. I think it's been really difficult for me to figure out what the relationship is between this plan and property interests and land uses. And I think at the end of the day, you know, we're working with Western definitions of property rights, and land uses that are really inconsistent with Native Hawaiian traditional ideas of these concepts, and it makes issues like this really tricky to muddle through. But my feeling is that given this choice, that on balance, my preference would be to approve the request for a contested case. I also think that we've heard in this agenda item and other agenda items that there's a pattern of frustration with the public process being expressed, and I think it's unfortunate that a lot of those frustrations end up resulting in requests for contested cases, and so I do think that speaks to a need for an improvement in our public consultation processes overall. Anyways, those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Member Barnes. Any other board members? Discussion? I'd like to call Michael up for a last couple of questions. Michael? So where we are right now with the supplemental plan, the proposed actions, would you consider them options? Options for consideration for implementation?
Options are, a lot of the controversial ones are more discussions. Like here are the things the university is considering based upon planning administrative rules.
Okay, sorry, let me rephrase this.
Yeah, I don't.
So any land use, definition land use actions, are those options or are they final?
Within the plan?
Yep.
There would be options.
They're options. And can you tell us a little bit about the new hui that was created past legislative session and basically their responsibility or their roles with the plan?
Are we talking about the Mauna Kea Authority?
Yeah.
So the intent of the legislative act was for a new Mauna Kea Authority to be established and to take over management of Mauna Kea lands. There's still disagreement upon at the I find there's still disagreement at the legislature on whether they would take over ownership of the land.
Mm-hmm.
Different parts of the act imply different things, but definitely the Mauna Kea Authority will take over all responsibilities that the university has.
Right.
They have 5 years to make the transition. It's been the department's position in testimony that if we can expedite the process and help pass over authority in 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, we would be supportive of that, because a transition period, a 5-year transition period is just awkward. If we're going to do it, we'd like to work with the authority to make it happen faster.
Does the group have the authority to edit the existing supplemental plan?
Yeah, I mean, they have the authority to develop their own plan, to take
Oh, right,
this
yeah.
plan, to modify it.
Right.
The act as it stands is the authority will develop a management plan.
Right.
So, assumption to start from scratch, realistically, I hope there are things useful in here.
Right.
But
right.
that's, they're clearly on it.
Thank you for correcting me. So of the options, they could scrap the existing plan, come up with their own, or they could work with the existing plan to supplement it further.
Correct.
At which point, does the DLNR approve such plans? As it's evolving?
You mean as it, would we approve the plans from the Mauna Kea Authority?
Yeah.
I believe that's a question that the legislature has to clarify for us.
Okay.
That it's unclear in the legislation.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they can change the plan.
Yeah, this is not their plan.
No, I know that.
So yeah, it's not can they change it? It's like, once we give it to them, the plan becomes a derelict document.
A what document?
Derelict.
Derelict,
It becomes like a archival document. It's not, this plan doesn't apply to the new authority.
Right.
So.
Or it could, if they
want
so
to,
wanted to.
They could say, hey, we like parts 3, 5, and 6. They can do whatever they want.
Michael, do you
Yeah,
anticipate in the 5-year transition that more consultation with Native Hawaiian community will ensue?
Between the university and
The authority.
I would hope so. That was the intent of the authority.
Okay.
I can't speak for them again though, because I'm not part of that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Okay, I think one last comment. There was some manao about the authority of DLNR and Kanaka Maoli. All I want to say to that is 5 members of this board are Native Hawaiian. 5, which has never been before. And you know, while there are those six, excuse me. Sorry, Uncle.
Correction.
Sorry. There are 6 Native Hawaiians on this board, which I don't think has ever been so. And I'm not saying that that makes things better or worse, but to suggest that Kanaka Maoli voices are not being heard or considered, I think might be misplaced a little bit. As you can hear from a discussion from this board, our discussions are very different in complexion than the last board. Very different. And I think that's a good thing. But having said that, I'll call for the vote.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment also.
Yep.
I'm voting for the motion to deny the contested case hearing. I think if anything, from a public standpoint, there has been a lot of distrust created because of the gridlock on going to court and litigation. And perhaps with the new group, they'll be able to have conversation within the community and not avail themselves with the court. I read the last decision written by Paula Khanna on the Land Use Commission, and I think the sense that I got out of that is that there has been too much litigation, and even when litigation has favored, for instance, putting up the CMT, there has been resistance against it. From this board standpoint, I think we've got to move on, and hopefully with this new group, they'll be able to get things moved ahead. And creating a contested case or another piece of litigation, I think, is not in the interest of the public or the Hawaiian community. And so I'm voting for this motion.
Any correction, I was wrong. Again, there are 7. All of us are Native Hawaiian, which has never been done before. Thank you for the correction. Okay, any other corrections for me? Okay, I'll call for the vote.
Please take, we don't have a do we have a second? Kanto.
Yeah.
For discussion.
Yeah, Kanto seconded, so I'll call for the vote. Member Smith?
Aye. Aye.
Member Barnes?
Nay.
Member Ono?
Aye.
Member Char?
Aye.
Aye.
Kanto?
Aye. Member
Cherry. It's very complex stuff. I'm going to say Aole. Because I look forward to further discussion about defining or redefining property interest. I think that's a very important thing for us to, and I'm not saying we're going to be successful, but I'd like to be hopeful. Because these things are going to come before the board more often than not. And so, Aole for me.
Okay.
Okay.
So the motion passes, 3 ayes and 2
no.
No, no.
But your comments were heard.
I'm sorry. 4 ayes.
4 ayes.
I wish you were here already. I keep forgetting about you.
Okay, I know the chair wants to get back into this meeting, so thank you, mahalo, everybody. Mahalo.
We let Kule know, we emailed her, the Anama Bay ones will be deferred to the next meeting.
Oh, you deferred?
Yeah,
Okay.
we know there's not gonna be enough time.
Okay.
So, sorry, Kule, you can hear me, Tiger's gonna call you. Sorry.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Hey, thank you, guys.
We're gonna do item,
Where's chair?
just coming.
Oh, okay.
Who's gonna present? Russell.
Luke Sarvis, my staff is in the boardroom, presenting at P6.
So they just voted against the item, and
Thank you so
that's
much.
going to put us in the
We
position of
appreciate
either going to court or
everybody's
not.
patience. Thank you very much. Luke, we are now doing item D.
So we're gonna kind of sneak out so that we can sneak out so we can get
And I am going to make one announcement before we proceed. We are going to lose 2 of our board members at 4:15. 4:30?
Yeah.
And Amy, that's you and Peggy. But I think we're still going to have a quorum, because after we take this item D6, we're going to take 2 items. And if we don't take action today, they're going to lose their funding. So I just want to let you, we may not be able to do more than after that. So I'm sorry, go ahead, Luke.
Okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep this comment short. So
I appreciate that.
the purpose of this one is for Hawaiian Native Livestock to return responses to questions the board raised at the last couple meetings that we're not able to answer at the time. Okay, so they submitted written comments, and we at the request of the chair added some responses to those which are incorporated into the staff summary. I just want to add a couple comments on top of that, because we did receive additional stuff a couple days ago, and that was not an explanation as to the partnerships that were proposed as part of the usage plan for the feedlot area. So in addition to some areas for pork producers and additional cattle storage and things like that, there's also a proposal of a partnership or sublease situation with sumo farms and future agricultural grow buildings for emerging producers. And so really the only thing I want to say about that is that when the set-aside was first contemplated by the board, it wasn't for the purpose of allowing a future tenant of DOA to essentially set up an ag park or something like that. It was simply for cattle and feedlot purposes, and also expressly for the 28,000 gallons of water shortfall that the slaughterhouse and the parcel needed to build on. And so that was the understanding of the board when we made this decision to set this land aside. And so now we're getting this proposal which lays out land uses to sumo farms for growing using approximately 40 acres of land to grow vine grass, which possibly can be used for food or natural gas production, which is going to be sold to, or proposing to sell to Hawaii Gas across the road. And just to restate that, this was never the intention of the board when they did the set aside. It was strictly for the water usage and the food offers, returning to what we had before. So that's about that on there. I just wanted to also note that as with before prior meetings, I went out and visited the site on Wednesday. And it was just to get a look because in one of Mr. Pierce's responses, he said that they asked American Home to execute an agreement to vacate that would require. Sorry for Sally. And not surprising, it doesn't look like there's much of any. Actually wasn't able to see
Still live. Still live. Just before we close out, say any.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get my phone totally died, so anybody who's watching my.
I actually have a battery.
I have a battery, I like kind of couldn't quite grab it from where I was sitting.
Okay, which is basically what, still this could happen at any
Yeah, so every
Where all of a
time,
sudden,
it's like, okay,
let's
so
say,
that's why I started with 2001.
either put it back
and
or
kicking
we're
it down,
gonna do it
they're like, oh, but now wait for the authority.
Okay.
It's like, before it was like,
because
oh, it was like, wait for the rules. Okay, you got to go, right, wait for the CMP to be updated. Okay, and now wait for the authority to make some changes because they might.
Right.
Which now this is.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, I know, it's kind of like when are we supposed to, to actually,
Immigrant groups who
when are we supposed to actually like intervene on this? I mean, basically when? Yeah.
It's either too early, too late, never the right time to intervene. I was so mad about Member Char's statements too. Because I'm like, wait, you make it sound like we're just like, you guys are just raising a fuss all the time, generating all this paperwork. Well, if you guys did your job.
The thing is, they're like, more litigation, it's terrible, more litigation. Like, wait a minute. You're deciding against like my offer of mediation, so our only option would be to litigate. Basically, you're like telling us to litigate.
Exactly.
What are you talking about?
But they're the ones, like, UH is supposed to, they say they're in Hawaiian Place of Learning, they're supposed to be protecting your rights, these guys are supposed to be protecting your rights, so who has to stand up for your rights? You do. And then when you try to, why do you litigate so much? Not the right time. Why do you litigate so much?
I think one thing that I think is good about this is that the bigger issue than even all of this is a lease. And I think that UH in this whole process has brought out, how much they did to, I mean, the UH Board of Regents, seriously, like, go and look at the agenda that this was originally on. You would never have been able to tell that they were sliding a 743-page document through that meeting. You wouldn't be able, there was no link, there was no reference to it. It was like, the way that the agenda item was worded, and it was like smack in the middle of a whole bunch of other blah, 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 right? Which is, by the way, just as a note to self, I want to make a zine on dirty tricks of the government. That's totally on my zine list. So I'm gonna say, if people can help me to remind me to do it, to get it off the back burner onto the front burner, because one of the dirty tricks of government, right? We've seen several of them here, right? And one of them is to bury stuff in thick bureaucracy, right? They basically create a muck of bureaucracy where you can't see that there's something important that they have just slid through, and then they gaslight you and make you feel like you weren't on it and you didn't have the presence of mind to contest it at the right time, right? And so where were you when we had these meetings? We discussed this matter. They totally hit it and slid it through, and then they gaslight you, and so there's, people have got to be on to these tricks that they use, right? So anyway, I mean, that's really what this whole thing has been about. But I think that we've got the bigger picture here, because what this entire thing has been about has been the lease. The reason that they're doing an update to the CMP is because they want the lease, right? And that National Science Foundation letter that's on page 208 of volume 2 of their ridiculously large freaking things, the National Science Foundation is like, well, why don't you just, when you're doing that lease that you're preparing, and when you do the cultural assessment, aren't you doing the cultural assessment? No, you guys are doing the lease. So in other words, UH is telling the National Science Foundation, oh yeah, we're working, the lease is already, we got them already, we're already working, it's all done deal, blah blah blah, right? And then to us they're like, lease, that's not on the table, we're not, what lease are you talking about? So it's all right there, right? But I mean, this is what's important, because the crucial thing here, honestly, this crap, it's like, it could be important, and we should consider what to do about this, but, which is another different discussion that we're not going to have on camera, but one way or another, the bigger picture is that we need to get UH off that mountain. That's the bigger picture, is that UH needs to leave, and all of this is really great.
Do you think the authority will give them back the lease?
I hope not. I hope not. But remember, lease goes through DLNR, right? So that's the problem, is that they lose the management, but they don't necessarily lose the lease, right? So the lease isn't governed by, I don't think it's.
It was also, I thought they had.
They have the power to.
I thought they got 171 powers too. That's why,
they do have powers to lease, but that doesn't mean that they are the place where the UH would apply, because DLNR had a meeting a couple meetings ago, right? And they basically ruled here that they usurp the Mauna Kea Management Authority, right? So did you catch that? No. Yeah, it was like last month. It was kind of a major summer cottage, summer. So, but they totally slid that one through too. So I mean, these guys, and my brother Kaiwi, I really do appreciate him voting against this. His ole is very meaningful and very important. I also board member, I can't remember her name. Amy Barnes. I thought she was good. I thought she was solid. Honestly, though, his comments about that there are 7 Native Hawaiians on the board, that was embarrassing. That was embarrassing. As a Hawaiian, I was embarrassed. know, because I was like, gosh, here's the representation. I mean, honestly, so individually, they'd probably be fine.
Yeah.
But you get them together in that dungeon, in those chairs, you know.
Yeah, we could call it a morgue.
Toys, those, yeah, it's a freaking dungeon in there. And it's like,
We're also questioning their authority, and nobody likes their authority questioned.
yeah, and really, they're not there to be represented as Hawaiians. I think one of them is, I don't know if it's Kaiwi or somebody. Somebody actually has this seat, right?
Yeah.
I assume it's Kaiwi, but I'm not sure. But anyway.
Might be Kanto, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I thought it was Canton.
Oh, is it?
I don't know. Kapua?
Yeah, Napua.
Napua. I think
Oh,
it's
really?
I thought it was
the.
But what was interesting was that they were wary about a contested case hearing delaying action by the TMT on their subplans. So behind a lot of the decision making was that concern, like they want the, like he kept, Vernon Char kept saying, we need things to keep rolling along. What direction are you rolling?
Right, no, exactly.
Yeah.
It's those subplans. It's all of those boxes.
I don't know how it would impact the subplans. I wanted to hear more. I wanted to
How would it impact the subplans? Or I don't know how your contested case would, but that was like they took out the TCP nomination support. Like that one's huge.
That is
As soon as they found out, because we told them, you know, because every year they say, oh, but nobody nominated a TCP, so we're not going to, so we don't have to do anything. And so we said, you know what, we are going to do that.
But there's supposed to be 3 already recognized ones.
Little ones.
Yeah.
It's like they said that they would support nomination of the entire summit.
Yeah, okay.
The entire summit.
Okay.
Until this 2022
Until
supplement.
the supplement.
And they said, no, what we meant was these 3 little parts that were already designated. Yeah. I mean, whatever, we're still going to do what we're doing. And we've told them this because Shifty says like, oh, we have to do TCPs, that's part of our mandate. We're like, okay, support ours. And you know what? Shifty did support in 1999. They were doing it themselves, but you know what? They couldn't do it because who trusted them? Frankly, right? So that's why we got other people to do it, like community people.
No, totally.
Oh, but now they took it out, so it's like, well, we're just gonna have to fight that later too now.
Yeah, right. Well, and the big thing is, it does come down to the National Science Foundation. TMT needs the National Science Foundation's money. National Science Foundation needs a lease. They ain't gonna fund something if there's no master lease, right? And that master lease is not looking so good. So they needed to do the comprehensive management plan update because that came up before, and it's not. They're not going to be able to apply for it. So they're getting all the ducks in line. They're like quacky, quacky, quack, quack, quack. You know,
and your contested case, your contested case, roll a wrench into that lineup.
Basically, that's the problem, right? And so they don't want to raise this stuff because they did this entire 742-page document with no consultation with the community whatsoever. I mean,
they asked everybody for comments, and people gave them comments, and then they were like, "This is outside of scope." And so, I mean, a lot of them. Maybe they did incorporate some stuff.
Well, they had a list of all the people they supposedly asked or emailed or anything. It wasn't a very long list. It wasn't like, there were a few kiai on it, but I mean, I think it was the kind of thing where they just said that they sent an email. So what they do, and I don't know if this happened for sure, but I'm pretty sure that's probably what happened, is that they have they just basically put people on an email list, and then they send out all kinds of crap. It's that burying in bureaucracy thing again, right? And they send out all kinds of crap, and people are like, oh, another thing from New Age, blah, 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 whatever. And so how are they even going to know when there's an actual, major thing that they're supposed to read through all 743 pages to see that there were some things that, I mean, honestly, let's be honest right now. like, I was reading the darn thing in the last hearing, you know, because I didn't really know. When I made the contested case, I was like, this is messed up, but I can't quite put my finger on it. It's just too much. There's too much to go through. It was too much. You know, I was like over there trying to like figure it out and, you know, flipping through it and
But you
everything.
did make key points that were in the CMP, so you did get that in.
I went and found like a few things, no, but
And then you
this
got
time,
more,
yeah, and then you know, yeah, eventually. But seriously, like when it first came up, I was just like, what is this thing? You know, I just know that this is wrong.
But
know,
you
and
read the CMP and you did know some of the things.
I did know.
Yeah.
I found
So it wasn't like you
enough
just
to.
asked without knowing.
No.
Yeah.
But I knew that there were some. I saw a few things that were like, that's not right. That's not right. That's not right. Right?
Okay,
Yeah. So I already knew that there were some things that were not right. Right. But the thing is that like it took me to read the entire thing. It was like, it's so, you know how much time that takes? And they only gave a 30-day comment period during which they was actually the time that they were reaching out to people. So I think it was actually much shorter than 30 days.
Plus, it's not like it's just one document, because you read that and it references the old CMP, these 4 sub-plans, the other management plan, the board rules, the UH rules.
I think only Deb can keep up.
Yeah, only Deb knows
But you know what's
everything.
interesting is when you requested the contested case, you totally threw them off. Remember, they were like,
Oh, God.
Wait a minute, no, you can't do that, right? And then the AG was saying, no, she can make a request. Remember, they couldn't figure out at what point you were able to request a contested case hearing.
No, they were trying to make her wait until the end,
until
so that they
after-
could vote and then defer it, and then just
Which
like, get it out of the
they
way.
did do. I mean, they did.
But
They
you
kind
still
of
need your request.
tricked me
Yeah.
because I was trying to make the request and they kind of like did this whole thing where they were like, oh, well, okay, we'll all pick up all of our stuff and go into executive session, and we had all of our people who had been waiting and couldn't, you know, some of them couldn't stay, and they were like, well, I guess we'll take a really long time then, you know, and it was like, and then so I asked them.
They were so confused, or they seemed so like they didn't know how to act, and they were trying to delay.
Yeah, and so basically I asked them, well, okay, yeah, I do want to make a request for a contested case. They were like, well, do you want to make it right now? Because if you make it right now, we have to stop this whole hearing. Nobody can testify. Everything's shutting down, and we're not going to have any more discussion on this at all. And all your people can just go home. You know, basically that's what they were saying. You know, so I was like, wait a minute, I don't want that. And then I think that was when I was kind of like reaching out. I was like, what do I do? I don't know. You know, because I totally didn't get it, and then the thing is, like, what I didn't catch was that what I should have done in hindsight, and in case I'm in this position, you know, what I should have done was let everybody testify and then literally jump in without being on the agenda, without anything, and just been like, I request a contested case before they make the decision, right? Because I can do it at any time in the hearing. So that's actually what I should have done, you know, because then they would not have been able to, they would have had to hear everybody, but they wouldn't have been able to go to decision making. But I didn't know this. I didn't know what it meant, you know? So, I mean, how could you know that you were supposed to make this crazy move, you know?
I only knew because this happened to you, because I did that on the 10th.
Oh, really?
For Anapoli, for the research. I was like, I'm going last. Everyone testified before me. So yeah, after that, like, I think everyone has to know this, but who knows, it might change the rules now. Like, who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, well, if they do, they have to have a hearing on that. So I mean, but yeah, so if anybody ever requests a contested case, what you do is you tell them that you're going to request a contested case because you want to make sure they're informed, but you're not requesting a contested case at that moment. So you're going to let everybody testify, and then at the moment before they go into decision making, you're like, okay, I'm requesting my contested case, you know? Stop the decision making. You know, so that's the, that was a learning experience for sure.
When did the approval of the CMP happen?
It was July 2022. Yeah, July 2022. So it was, I mean, it was, something that can bring life. You know, knowing that who signed it. Anyway, so, you know, it's just, I think that the thing is too, that we've got to look at what this stuff really means. I mean, honestly, like even getting defensive of the Hawaiians, I think it's really something like, I'm gonna have to take that up with him later on. Because it's, they're not sitting in the capacity of a Hawaiian. Hawaiian genealogy is one thing, but being indigenous is about, it necessitates being a kiai to some degree. It necessitates an actual relationship to the land. You know, if your family member was being hurt, you have a family obligation to step in and go, hey, you don't hit my mother. Yeah. You know what I mean, right? You have an obligation. So if you are family to the land, if you're indigenous, that means you're family to the land. And if you're family to the land, you have an obligation to not be just like rubber stamp and, you know, this and that. I mean, you might still be Hawaiian and you might still have that genealogy, and that's important. And maybe your kids will get there. But you yourself, just because you're Hawaiian doesn't mean you can't also be a colonizer.
Yeah, no, they're still upholding the illegitimate state of Hawaii as those positions. Thank you so much for holding it down. Okay.
I'm so sorry.
I'm holding.
Okay, I'll try to remember.
Can you remember your name too?
Candace.
Fujikane.
Yeah. Nice to meet you.
Alright. Oh my gosh, now you guys show up now. Okay. Aloha. Hello.
You guys going to the sign meeting at 4:30? It's like the, I don't even know where I'm going. It's the Red Hill sign meeting at 4:30. 4:30 to 6:30. Where is it?
Here.
Usually it's, I think it's usually, I thought it was usually close to the